Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me here today. We're working hard across the government and with our partners to find ways to provide relief for Manitobans who need it now more than ever. All Manitobans have been impacted by this crisis. That's why I'm pleased to announce today that Manitoba Public Insurance is returning up to $110 million to provide financial relief to its policy holders. This surplus is a result of fewer claims during the COVID period, coupled with strong year-end financial results. MPI will be issuing rebate checks to Manitoba ratepayers at the end of May to early June. Under existing legislation, MPI is able to immediately return $50 million to its ratepayers. It will require approval of the Public Utilities Board for the additional $60 million. MPI will apply to the Public Utilities Board in the coming days regarding the additional $60 million in order to be able to return these amounts to Manitoba ratepayers. With Public Utility Board approval in the next few weeks, the entire $110 million will be returned as part of the rebate checks mailed to all Manitobans. This will return money to Manitobans at a time when it is needed most. Rebates are based on what policyholders paid last year and is expected to be around 11% or between $140 to $160 per average policyholder. Public health orders directing the public to stay at home and for non-essential businesses to cease direct interaction with the public have resulted in fewer claims being incurred. Based on current projections, MPI is confident that the extension of public health orders and the provincial state of emergency extended until May 18th will result in direct savings to the corporation into the foreseeable future. With a healthy reserve fund, MPI is in a strong financial situation to move forward with these rebate checks to support their customers. This rebate to customers not only adversely impact the corporation, will not adversely impact the corporation's financial outcomes moving forward. Further details of the rebates will be made available in the coming weeks, and you can look to mpi.mb.ca for more information. We're all in this together, Manitobans, and together we will beat this thing. Thank you, and I'll now look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you, Minister. A reminder to the reporters on board that you will have one preliminary question and one follow-up question. Up first from Global, Brittany.
Good morning, Minister. Brittany from Global. I'm just wondering why this wouldn't be a direct deposit of the money and it could save postage and a lot of hassle to get this into the hands of ratepayers right away.
Well, thanks, Brittany, for the question, and I can tell you that we are working in collaboration with our government officials, Crown Services, particularly MPI and other areas that we're trying to move forward. This is an area that we recognize is a concern. It has been this way for a number of years, and our government is moving forward to ensure that that exact availability will be coming forward in the near future.
There's a memo that was released, and you've probably seen by now as well that it's hit the media. We're wondering how many more government layoffs we're expecting in Crown corporations and when that is going to come.
Well, Brittany, thanks again for the question, and I can tell you we're working every day in collaboration with our Crown corporations, and I know a whole of government approach as well as we move forward through this pandemic. There is certainly no handbook on how coronavirus or COVID-19 is rolling out, and certainly we're moving at lightning speed to ensure that the safety is number one for all Manitobans. And as we move through this process, we're working in collaboration with our employers and our employees to ensure that we get through this. And when we get through it, we come out of it stronger than we were in the past.
From the Brandon Sun, Drew.
Thank you. This is Drew May from the Brandon Sun. Minister, just wondering about rebates on crop insurance. Has there been any talk of rebating farmers for what they would have paid last year?
Well, thanks, Drew, and certainly I would defer that question to the Minister of Agriculture. I'm sure that he would be more able to give you a direct answer on where that particular issue is.
And just as a follow-up, on the topic of possible layoffs, do you have any sense of when we might be hearing more information on any possibility there?
Well, again, Drew, and as the Premier's alluded to, we're working in collaboration with employers and employees, and we're continuing that process, and we'll look forward to continuing down that path during this pandemic and during these unprecedented times.
From CJOB, Diana.
From 680 CJOB. Obviously, you mentioned that the first $50 million is okay to go out, but you need DPUB approval for the extra $60 million. Depending on when that happens, could there be kind of two checks coming out for policyholders? What would that look like if they're not able to come together?
Well, thanks, Diana, and we've been having good conversations with our Crown Corporation and MPI. Of course, we know that the PUB, of course, will be in charge of any decision with respect to the $60 million, and certainly as we go through in a collaborative fashion, we look forward to again this great announcement of $110 million today going to the ratepayers of Manitoba.
And then would there be the possibility for more rebates down the road depending on how long this public health order is in effect? Obviously, this is based on sort of calculations on where we are now.
Well, we're very, very proud of the announcements that our Premier and our government have made over this last several weeks during these unprecedented times, and we continue to work again not only here as a whole of government approach, but also with our federal and municipal partners as we go through these unprecedented times. And we're certainly looking forward to flattening the curve. Manitobans have been doing a wonderful job, and certainly Dr. Roussin and Ms. Saragusa's leadership is fantastic, and we're looking forward to continuing down and flattening the curve and moving forward during these unprecedented times.
From the Winnipeg Sun, Josh.
Good morning, Minister. This is Josh Aldridge from the Winnipeg Sun. When can people expect to start seeing these rebate checks in the mail? Are these going to be mailed out immediately, or is there still a processing for the first stage of these checks to be mailed out?
Well, as I mentioned, Josh, in my opening comments, there is $110 million being announced today, and we're looking at moving those checks out towards the end of May and 1st of June. So that's the goal at this point. We're having good conversations with all the stakeholders, and that's our goal at this point.
Okay. My second question, it's also regarding it's also regarding negotiations with unions regarding Crown employees. What are those discussions being like? Because there's a lot of frustration on the side of unions in terms of those discussions and getting details. Where do those negotiations stand? Not just necessarily on who's going to be potentially seeing layoffs or work share programs going in, but where are those what are those negotiations like? Sorry.
Yeah, well, again, we're in constant contact with our Crown corporations during this pandemic, and certainly their leadership needs to be noted today. They're doing unbelievable work in these unprecedented times, and I know the front lines in respect to the Crowns are also working hard during these unprecedented times, and we thank them for all their efforts. This is an all-hands-on-deck approach, as the Premier alludes to, and we're looking forward to continued collaboration with our front lines. And if I could just put a shout out to all the frontline in healthcare as well, the nurses, doctors, and all the aides that are helping out during this pandemic. Thank you for all your work. It's just wonderful to see. And Team Manitoba, as the Premier alludes to, that's exactly what we're witnessing here in Manitoba.
From CBC Radio Canada, Patrick.
Good morning, Minister. Patrick Foucault from Radio Canada. So you've asked Crown corporations, universities to give you their plans, their scenarios on Tuesday. Now, when are you expecting to follow up with them and tell them if their plan works for you or not?
Well, Patrick, thanks for the question. And again, we're working through the process with our centres, in particular into Crowns, where my responsibility lies. We're continuing to have dialogue and working with our employers and our employees to ensure that the approach is moving forward, and it's an all-hands-on-deck scenario, and certainly the discussions are ongoing, and we look forward to continuing them.
Thank you.
From CBC Manitoba, Bart.
Minister Wharton, Bart McKee, Sir at CBC. As you know from the public health order, environmental services are considered essential during this pandemic. Will you commit that environmental oversight at Manitoba Hydro will continue unimpeded?
Well, thanks, Bart, and certainly a great opportunity for our department to thank the frontline workers at Manitoba Hydro going forward in these unprecedented times. And, again, everybody is following the Chief Public Health Officer's orders to the letter. They're doing great work to ensure the health and safety of not only the workers, but the public is first and foremost, Bart, and that's the process that's continuing, and I expect that will continue through under the leadership of our Chief Public Health Officer.
That's nice, but I would like you, Minister, to answer my question. Yes or no? Will environmental work continue unimpeded by Manitoba Hydro?
Well, Bart, thanks again for that question, and I can tell you that it's not business as usual anywhere across Manitoba right now. I can tell you that the areas of essential services need to be maintained, and I know that our Crown corporations are doing a fantastic job at doing that, and I know that they will continue to.
From the Canadian Press, Steve.
Hi, Mr. Wharton. Steve Lambert from the Canadian Press. You oversee a number of crowns, some of which, such as Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries, have already issued temporary layoffs to over 1,000 staff. Some crowns seem to be not quite as far along the road, such as Manitoba Public Insurance. Can you say at this point how many people may be temporarily laid off at Manitoba Public Insurance, given, as you said, the reduced demand for things like claims?
Well, thanks for the question, Steve. And certainly, again, as I'd mentioned in an earlier response, we're working with all our Crown corporations and MPI, of course. I'm, again, so pleased today to announce $110 million going back to ratepayers in collaboration with MPI. I know that certainly we're moving forward with employers, employees, and we're going to continue that dialogue. So we're looking forward to that, continued discussions as we go forward through these unprecedented times.
And I was told earlier this week, auto insurance claims this April are down about 48%, almost half from the same time last year. So where do you see the room for cuts in MPI?
Well, again, Steve, one of the reasons why we're able to be here today and make this wonderful announcement of $110 million back to ratepayers is a simple fact that claims are down, and we have a great leadership from MPI staff and executive and our board moving forward to ensure that Manitoba ratepayers are protected. And this is an example of Manitoba Public Insurance and our other crowns working for the betterment of Manitobans, all Manitobans. And again, we're pleased to make this announcement today with MPI of $110 million going right back to where it belongs, to Manitobans.
From CTV Winnipeg, Jeff.
Hello, Mr. Minister. Jeff Keel, CTV. What signal has the PUB given you on the $60 million? Do they appear cooperative?
Well, we're not directly dealing with the PUB. As you know, they're an arm's length of government, Jeff, and certainly MPI during their general rate applications, along with Manitoba Hydro, work directly with interveners and PUB. So we expect that those conversations are continuing, and certainly we've seen things progress with our Crown corporations to ensure that Manitobans are protected in the long run, and we'll certainly anticipate that will continue.
But do you anticipate that the PUB will go along with it?
Well, certainly I don't want to prejudge the outcome, Jeff. I mean, that's not my position. Again, we're pleased to announce the $110 million. We know that $50 million under legislation is available immediately, and certainly we expect that the PUB and MPI will have discussions over the next days and weeks to ensure that we move forward in a collaborative way. So, look, it's a great announcement. $110 million going back to ratepayers Manitoba during these unprecedented times, and certainly we thank everybody for all their hard work.
From City News, Jonas.
Good morning, Minister Wharton. Jonas Gilbart, City News. Just confirming the source of the extra funding. This is strictly some lack of claims coming in, or is this also factoring in maybe a reduction in payroll in the months to come?
No, actually, thanks, Jonas, for the question. Again, this is, as I alluded earlier in a comment, this is obviously related directly to COVID. There have been several large reduction in claims over the last several weeks, and certainly that's bolstered MPI's bottom line. And where that money should go is right back to the ratepayers of Manitobans, and that's why we're here today. And that's where it's going, right back on the tables of Manitobans through these tough times. And certainly I would expect that we'll move forward in a collaborative way to make sure that gets done.
So just a quick follow-up. This is strictly claims that have gone down that is being passed on. This isn't any payroll savings at all?
This has nothing to do with payroll savings, Jonas.
From the Winnipeg Free Press, Carol.
Hi, Mr. Wharton. It's Carol Sanders of the Free Press. The Premier said his goal is for Manitoba to be the first province to reopen safely in Canada. And I'm wondering, if you can't say when there's going to be layoffs or how many layoffs there might be, is there a chance that the economy will be back up and running and reopening and there won't be a requirement for layoffs and wage reductions?
Well, I appreciate the question, Carol, and certainly that's not an area that I would venture into, simply for the fact that there will be an update today at 1 o'clock from our Chief Public Health Officer, and I'm sure Dr. Rusin will be able to provide some more information on that. Look, we're here again to stick handle through very challenging times with Manitobans side to side, and I can tell you that it's so humbling to see the Manitobans step up in this time of crisis. And certainly Dr. Rusin and Ms. Saragusa should be commended for all their hard work. And again, if you needed any further update, I know that they will be on today at 1 o'clock.
My follow-up question then is, do you have any deadline for coming up with a number of layoffs, or is there any kind of timeline that you're looking at that you've been given? Is it by the end of May, by the end of June? Like, how soon are we to expect that the layoffs will be announced, or the work reductions or the voluntary work programs will be coming?
Well, thanks, Carol. And as I mentioned again earlier, the employers and the employees are in discussions as we speak. They've been ongoing for quite some time, and they will continue. Certainly, I don't want to prejudge the outcomes of that. And again, it's all on hands on deck, as the Premier alludes to. And certainly, I know that Manitobans will step up, and they already have shown in many cases of doing exactly that. So certainly, we're very proud of the fact that we're able to move forward. And as Dr. Rusin said, we work towards ensuring that we flatten that curve. And again, I'd like to thank all Manitobans for doing exactly that, staying home, social distancing, and doing all the right things to help us get to the point where we can restart our economy and move forward.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Minister. This concludes today's media briefing.